All mental illness stems from lack of attuned care. That is a quote by Alain de Botton that has been widely shared on social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, and often without direct attribution to a particular lecture or publication. I couldn't find where they actually pulled this from. The quote reflects his perspective on emotional well being and mental health, which is deeply influenced by philosophy, psychology, and relationships. Alain de Botton, a modern philosopher and founder of the School of Life, which I love, by the way, often explores themes of love, attachment, and how childhood experiences shape adult emotional struggles. Let me be clear that I truly hold him in very high regard. When he says, all mental illness stems from lack of attuned care, he's likely referring to the idea that many psychological difficulties originate from early relational experiences, particularly the absence of empathic, responsive, and nurturing care. And this aligns with attachment theory, which suggests that secure relationships in childhood and even adulthood are crucial for mental well being. When people don't receive attuned care, meaning care that is emotionally responsive and understanding, they may develop anxiety, depression, or other mental health struggles. However, while childhood trauma and emotional neglect are undeniably contributing factors in some cases, this statement, especially when taken out of context, can be incredibly harmful to those who have devoted their lives to caring for loved ones with mental illness. I have attended support groups for families struggling with the burden of caring for someone who is mentally unwell. And when I see their faces, I am ashamed to admit that even my first thought is to blame the parents. This is such a common unconscious bias. It's unfortunate. It's an unconscious tendency to blame others, to remove oneself from the environment where anything other than health and well-being is present, and to protect one's belief system. But as I listen and learn, I have come to realize just how complex mental health issues truly are. Hearing this quote, which is being widely promoted on social media, I worry that it will only reinforce existing biases and deepen misunderstandings about mental illness. The weight of such blame is simply unbearable. Parents and caregivers already live with enough guilt, questioning what they could have done differently, when in reality, mental illness is a complex interplay of genetics, mitochondrial dysfunction, and environmental factors. To suggest that it is simply the result of inadequate parental care ignores the realities of those who have provided love, stability, and support, yet still find themselves watching someone they love suffer. There are many conditions that can cause mental disorders, including something as culturally acceptable as experimenting with cannabis use. If the individual's mitochondria is already compromised, the growing body of research on metabolic brain disorders challenges outdated perspectives on mental illness. Studies are now shedding light on how conditions like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and depression may be linked to metabolic dysfunction in the brain. Treatments like the ketogenic diet and metabolic therapies are emerging as potential ways to support brain health and alleviate symptoms. These findings point to the biological complexity of mental illness, an area far removed from the overly simplistic notion that all suffering stems from a lack of attunement in childhood. Perhaps a more valuable interpretation of de Botton's statement is to consider attuned care not just in the emotional sense, but in the biological and environmental sense as well. We must attune ourselves to the latest research on mitochondrial dysfunction, the role of metabolic health in mental illness, and the environmental toxins that may contribute to neurological disorders. Understanding the reasons behind these dysfunctions, whether they stem from inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, or exposure to harmful chemicals and drugs, opens the door to new possibilities for healing. Rather than assigning blame, we should shift our focus to awareness advocacy and supporting advancements that can offer real solutions to those who suffer. One of the reasons I have chosen to speak publicly about my own struggles in helping someone I deeply care about is because of the unconscious biases that permeate all these discussions about mental illness. These biases, rooted in misunderstanding and misinformation, only add to the suffering of those already carrying an unimaginable burden. Mental illness needs to be understood for what it truly is: a medical, psychological, and sometimes neurological condition, not just an emotional wound from the past. Yes, childhood experiences matter, but there are countless parents who have created emotionally healthy environments for their children and still find themselves navigating the heartbreak of mental illness. The reality is far more nuanced than this quote suggests, and we must approach the topic with compassion, curiosity, and a willingness to challenge our assumptions. In his book, Brain Energy, Dr. Christopher M. Palmer challenges the misconception that individuals with mental illnesses like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder exhibit symptoms due to character flaws, such as laziness or rebelliousness. He emphasizes that these conditions are rooted in metabolic and mitochondrial dysfunctions within the brain, rather than personal failings. Palmer's research highlights that mental disorders are complex and multifaceted, involving disruptions in energy production at the cellular level. His perspective shifts the focus from blaming individuals to understanding the underlying biological mechanisms contributing to their conditions. He urges us to stop rationalizing when it comes to these conditions and consider the fact that being diagnosed with one of these conditions is devastating for the patient and their families. Wouldn't you be anxious and depressed if you had schizophrenia or were considered bipolar? You have schizophrenia is the most heartbreaking thing you can say to a patient. You have schizophrenia. It's like saying you have terminal cancer, you're pucked, and there is nothing we can do for you. It's a genetic lifelong disorder. This is what Christopher Palmer states. But wait, this diet is changing schizophrenia and making it go away. This is not a diet. It's a medical therapeutic intervention and treatment for so-called mental illness. It's putting schizophrenia into remission and people are getting off their meds, says Christopher Palmer. Exposing ourselves to knowledge, information, support, and clinicians that can help on the road to recovery gives new meaning to Alain de Botton's quote that all mental illness stems from lack of attuned care. Let's attune ourselves. This shift in understanding offers a message of hope. Mental illness is not a life sentence. And with the right interventions, recovery is possible. Instead of resignation, we should embrace the growing body of research that is defining what's possible for those diagnosed with conditions once thought untreatable. Every day, you'll be faced with appearances and circumstances that claim the pain will never end. You have no control, and the person you love is lost to some crazy illness. Every day, you'll encounter people who blame the person that you know is a victim, possibly blaming you. And if they're not blaming you, you might be blaming yourself. Every day, you'll also have the opportunity to learn something new about yourself and what's possible for the person you want to help. Every day, you'll have a chance to expand your perception, become wiser, stronger, and recognize your agency. Call me crazy, label me what you will, but it is unacceptable to me to believe that we have to spend more time, energy, and effort adapting to what we call illness and accommodate it rather than fighting for health and well being. People are inspired not by what they know to be accurate, but by what they believe is possible for them. What can you believe is possible? If you would like more support or want to support those you love who are struggling, please subscribe to this channel, share it with other people, sign up for my newsletter, and you will be notified of resources, updates, and support groups. I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you for listening. I love you.